So, listen, I want to dive into this. We kind of hit this subject matter with Scott Van Pelt yesterday. I kind of don't get the Brock Purdy conversation, and I'm trying to find out where the worm turned for this kid in the national conversation about his play, his preparedness to be a Super Bowl quarterback, and then obviously him going against Patrick Mahomes, who is the ultimate game-changing quarterback. Doesn't help matters. It only intensifies the conversation about what Brock Purdy doesn't do. That's, I guess, the question. When did this conversation turn from what Brock Purdy is doing into what Brock Purdy doesn't do, or ultimately just can't do? Especially, that makes no sense when this sport is all about doing the impossible. Tom Brady, 199th overall to 7-time Super Bowl champ. Kurt Warner, who knows about winning a Super Bowl wearing number 13, had a movie about his magic carpet ride made. And so why do we look at a player in the NFL and say not only is the subject matter what he can't do, what isn't doing, but what he can't do? So last year, right, we all know the Niners were going to go with Trey Lance coming into this season, right? Or going into that season last year. We all knew it was going to be Trey Lance, and then he hurts himself. And Jimmy Garoppolo was there, and the team decides to hang on to Jimmy Garoppolo despite everybody saying goodbye to him. After the NFC Championship game loss to the Rams, they decided to come up with a construct to keep him there, because they're not going to go into the season with the last overall pick in the draft being their backup, and eventually he gets out there because everybody gets hurt, and he goes on an incredible run. And the first team that he beats as a starter is Tom Brady's Buccaneers, with Brady having his whole family in the house, essentially, because it was apparent going to be his last run. And Purdy goes on a run. And the conversation about how the Niners season is over because Lance is not coming back and Garoppolo is out. And there was even a conversation, if they make the Super Bowl, Garoppolo could be back. But that even gets pushed to the wayside because of how Purdy kept playing and looking terrific and making throws that the Niners, quite frankly, weren't getting nearly as consistently with Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's an interesting story that you heard Jed York, the principal owner of the San Francisco 49ers, tell just this past week at a training camp conversation 2 summers ago after they draft Brock Purdy. And in training camp, he goes up to Kyle Shanahan and asks how the quarterbacks are doing, and Shanahan tells him the best one is Brock Purdy, which is kind of similar to, remember when Tom Brady got in 2001 after Drew Bledsoe got hurt, and the conversation was, we're cool because we saw what this kid looked like in training camp, and Brady, as we all know, went on that remarkable run. Purdy looked that good from the start, and that was a conversation that was had last night when NFL Network's Michael Robinson walked up to the podium Kyle Shanahan was sitting at the NFL opening media night and asked him about that story.
Well, it's funny to hear Jed say that because it wasn't the smartest moment I've ever had. I mean, when an owner comes in after training camp practices and is like, hey, how's the quarterback? And what he means is the starter or the second. And you in irritation go, I don't know, but our third guy's the best. Like, that's not what he wants to hear. So that's why he remembers it very strong. But that was just more Brock was so good right away with every rep he got. He was always the same. And he only got a couple of them. So it was easy for me to say. Because in his few reps, he was the best. But if you know that for a fact, I mean, then you do what you do right away. But he was the best. But you ease that on. And every time he got a little more reps, it was the same as when he only got 2. And so when it was all said and done and he got a lot of playing time, it was like, oh, this looks exactly like what I told you when I was irritated. And he only had 3 reps. And I said, no, he's the best. But that's what was so real about Brock. That's why after his 7 games, his rookie year, even when he got hurt, we knew what we had because he'd been that way in practice every day, and it was the exact same way in the games.
I love that. He's irate. Our third stringer's the best one because he was upset with the way Lance, and Garoppolo were looking, right? Or Garoppolo wasn't even out there.
Jimmy was not there.
Jimmy wasn't even. That's correct, right? Yeah. Jimmy didn't even get a playbook.
Was told to just stay away.
Right?
We'll call you if we need you.
Yeah.
And so Purdy looked the best. Now, again, as I mentioned off the top, in What the Football, Amy Trask tells a Barrett Robbins story I've never heard of before. But Susie does a deep dive into Purdy because, I mean, she and I were talking about it this weekend. This guy is. This could be the Brady here. This could be his Brady moment. And normally you'd be all in on that conversation if you're in the national media, right? But instead it's what Purdy can't do. And you just heard how he looked in the beginning and how every rep that he took looked the same and how he made the most of it. And then this year, after he gets hurt, as a matter of fact, that's his only playoff loss. He's 4-1 in playoffs now. Technically, that's his loss because he started the NFC Championship game. If you have the metric be, hey, minimum 5 pass attempts in a game, he's 4-0. He only threw 4 pass attempts before the last one was the Hassan Reddick blowing up his arm on what looked like would have been a touchdown to Ayuk. But the point I'm making is this. The guy this year comes back from surgery. That's normally something you talk about as a positive. And then in terms of what you just heard from Kyle Shanahan there, making the most of a rep. How about this statistic for Brock Purdy? This year, 5th in passing yards, 4,280 passing yards on just 440 pass attempts. That's 20th in the league. Do you want to know the list of quarterbacks in NFL history to rank top 5 in passing yards in a season in which he also ranked 20th or lower in pass attempts? You want to hear the list?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The list is Brock Purdy.
That's the list?
That's the list.
Oh.
Nobody else has ever done it.
Didn't turn the paper over?
No. There's no other paper.
Oh,
it's just one name on the list.
Invisible ink or
That's
something?
Okay.
He's the first and only
Well, that seems good.
to ever do it. And by the way, it's not just throwing right at the line of scrimmage and letting his guys do the work, which sounds like Debo, right? Sounds like McCaffrey, right? He also led the league in yards per attempt.
Oh, gee.
9.6 yards per attempt. No, wait a minute. Hold on a minute, Rich. That could be just down the line of scrimmage, right?
I need air yards, Rich.
No, I'm giving you that. I've got a next-gen stat.
I need air yards.
I've got a next-gen stat.
Go deep, baby.
In terms of this season, when you throw for 10 or more air yards in the air, his passer rating is 130.3. That's first. His completion percentage, 62.7. That's first. His yards per attempt, when it's over 10 yards, 14.9. That's first.
First.
Brock,
So-
I just had the Alonzo Mourning gift.
And in terms of when you are averaging over 9 pass yards per attempt in a season and throwing at least 400 passes, The previous 4 players, Matt Ryan in 2016, 9.3. Rodgers in 2011, 9.2. Manning in 2004, same thing, 9.2. Marino, 9.0 in the 84. The other 4, you know what they have in common? They won the most valuable player awards that year. So what is it? Oh, well, I got one more for you here.
Oh. Ooh.
In the first 2 seasons of a playing career in the NFL, when you've attempted at least 50 pass attempts, this includes playoffs as well. Patrick Mahomes, 110.4 passer rating in his first 2 seasons. That's better than Warner and Marino right behind him on the list. There's only one player with a better passer rating in his first 2 seasons than Mahomes. Do you want to know his name? It's Brock Purdy.
Hey.
Oh, gee.
Well, what are we talking about here? So why is it? What is it about? I think I've got the answer.
Yeah, I've got some answers, sure.
The answer is the Niners screwed it up with Trey Lance. And Purdy's not the answer because you want the Niners to screw it up. Honestly. What is it? Oh, wait a minute. It's maybe because Purdy makes it all about himself. Hold on a minute. I'm told it's the exact opposite. Listen to this answer last night when asked about how he keeps a level head. Hit it.
I mean, the bottom line is, like, life isn't about you. Like, that's what I believe, you know. Being a part of something bigger than yourself, you know, you get wrapped up in getting all the glory and the fame and the status. I feel like that's a shallow life, and that can, you know, fade away pretty quickly. So for me, it's, you know, obviously, yeah, we're playing the Super Bowl. I'm very honored and thankful. I want to win a championship for this organization, but more than anything, I'm, you know, trying to just serve my guys on this team well and love on them well, and the whole organization and everyone in my life. That's how I view it. So,
what is it?
You want me to tell you?
Sure, because I'm trying to figure it out. Like, he's not the guy that the Niners are going to eventually trip up. That we saw what he did last year, and then he doesn't make the Super Bowl because his arm blows up. He rehabs it. He has a season like the one that we're seeing right now, and he's still cutting his teeth in the playoffs, but well enough for him to have a fourth quarter and second half in the games Kevin Burkhardt, who's about to join us, called against Green Bay and the Lions of the ages. What's your theory?
Let's see. The Trey Lance thing you mentioned, but he wasn't even the second choice there. He was the third choice, okay? He's the last pick in the draft.
Yes.
I think that really factors into a lot of it.
But that's something to root for. This is a movie.
Normally, but a lot of people, their perception is that he plays on a super team, so all he has to do is kind of roll the ball out there.
So if we had shows like what we see on national TV and Sports Conversation back in 1999, Kurt Warner would have been a system quarterback?
For sure.
Because of Marshall and Isaac Bruce
Absolutely.
and Torrey Holt and Oz Hakeem.
Super team. And,
oh, yeah.
And the coach is kind of an offensive genius.
Oh, sure.
Similar to Brock Purdy.
Just roll out the footballs and Kurt
just
Warner.
roll out the football. We're going to scheme it up.
Screw
Guys are
the
going to be
bad
super wide
groceries.
open.
Forget it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Crazy,
he looks
man.
like a teenager.
No,
He literally
but why
doesn't
hold that
shave.
against him? It's exactly the type of kid that you want to root for. I don't understand
Also,
it.
the Niners, a team, they haven't won a Super Bowl. People forget about this. Longer than the Cowboys.
Yeah,
Their
everyone-
drought is longer than Dallas.
No one ever wants to bring that up. They'll always go, well, the Niners made it there. But no one ever says the Cowboys haven't made it to a Super Bowl. Everyone just says Cowboys
It's
haven't
literally longer
won
than
a-
Dallas's drought, but all we talk about are the Cowboys because they haven't even made it to the conference championship game, whereas San Francisco has been to the Super Bowl and come up short.
It's a head shake.
I think maybe because people don't like the Niners.
Maybe it's also because, too, like the stats that I'm saying, you need a college degree
Graphic
times 10
calculator.
to figure out
Shout out TI-82.
Yeah.
to figure out what a passer rating is.
Yeah, I like
Air
stats I
yards
can just add
and
up.
stuff like that.
EPA, I mean,
Right.
all the kind of advanced
It's not
metrics,
pretty,
stats,
but neither was
analytics.
Garoppolo. And the kid he's made the Super Bowl.
Well, Rich, Garoppolo is pretty.
My bad. I meant Purdy.
Thank you.
You're right, Rich. He is a kid we all should be behind, judging from where he came from.
I don't get it.
As a Cowboy fan, I don't like the Niners, but I like the story. So that's just as a Cowboys fan.
No, and the one who's also setting
everyone else should.
The guy who's also setting this conversation is a former MVP quarterback in Cam Newton. And he says it's nothing personal. It sounds completely personal every single time he opens his mouth on the subject matter.
The other thing, too, is like this is an underdog story, Brock Purdy, right? The problem is the 49ers have been favorites in every single game this year, and they're favorites against a guy I put on Mount Rushmore, Patrick Mahomes. So it's really not an underdog story. They're kind of Goliath in this situation.
Last quarterback in which a quarterback led the NFL in passing yards per attempt in the regular season against a team that ranked top 5 in a pass defense in the regular season, as this Super Bowl will be, was Joe Montana against the Denver Broncos in 1989. And he eviscerated that team 55-10
Yeah,
that was a
in
blow.
the Super
I
Bowl.
think Jerry Rice just scored another touchdown.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.